Erin, the behavior coordinator here at the Denver Animal Shelter, and today we're going to learn how to train a dog to do a hand target, which means they touch their nose to the palm of your hand. The three things that we're going to need are a dog, our training plan, and some really delicious snacks. Before we get started, let's talk about how to train. We're always going to start at step 1, which most dogs are able to do successfully. We're going to repeat each step 5 times, and depending on how many he gets right, we're either going to move to the next step in the plan, stay on that same step, or drop to the previous one. If he gets most of them correct, which is 4 or 5 out of 5, we're going to push to the next step in the plan. If he gets 3 out of 5 correct, so about half of them, we're going to stick on that same step. If he gets 2 or fewer, we're going to drop to the previous step. When he does get it right, we're going to mark that with yes and deliver the treat. We always want to make sure that he's getting reinforced for the behavior that we like. If he gets it wrong, we're just going to say too bad, which over time is going to signal to the dog that he lost an opportunity at a reinforcer. We at the Denver Animal Shelter are big fans of fear-free training, so we're never going to punish them, hit, or yell at them if we get it wrong. We're just going to give them more opportunities to try again. Some other things we want to keep in mind is that while we're training, we want to try to keep a quiet body. So that means we're not flapping our arms around, we're standing up nice and tall, and there's no extra movement. We also want to make sure that we're training as fast as possible. Dogs are going to get bored or distracted if there's too much time between each step or each repetition of the plan. We also want to make sure that we're using treats that really motivate him. What we're asking the dog to do is really hard, and it's something new that he's never done before. We really need to make it worth his while, and so we recommend using something like cheese, hot dogs, or the chopped up food rolls so that we can really motivate him. If you find that the dog is not interested in food and he won't take a freebie, that means that he's not interested in training at that moment. Instead, we can spend some time socializing and take them for a walk, but if they're not motivated by food, they're not going to be motivated by training. It does work best to do this before they've had their meal at the shelter. The last thing we want to keep in mind while we're training is that we're going to give the dog as long as he needs to figure out the problem. So what that means is if we offer a lure or a hand signal or a prompt, as long as he is still engaged with us, we're going to give him as long as he needs to figure it out on his own. We're not going to do another lure or another prompt or try and coach him into it. We're just going to let him figure it out. Once he gets it right, we're still going to mark it with yes and deliver the treat. Remember, he's in more of a hurry to get those food rewards than we are. If he gets it wrong or he disengages from us, which might look like him sniffing around on the floor, scratching around on the collar, jumping up on us, we're gonna mark that with too bad and start another repetition or another step. Over time, the dog will learn that too bad means he lost his opportunity at a reinforcer. Okay, now let's walk through each step of the plan. But don't worry, we're going to show this to you on a live dog later in the video. So step 1, we're going to take our food lure. I have a biscuit here for visibility, but you'll want to use something delicious like cheese or a hot dog. We're going to put that in the palm of our hand and cover it with our thumb. We're going to present this right in front of the dog's nose, and when he touches the palm of our hand, we then open up our thumb so he can get the snack. When he's gotten 4 or 5 out of that step correct, we're going to move to the next step. It's exactly the same, except that we're going to have our hand a little bit further away from the dog. We want him to have to crane forward to get the snack. For larger dogs, this is about 1 foot away, but for smaller dogs, we can adjust the distance so that they're not having to take steps forward. Once he's successful there, we can move on to step 3. This is where it gets a little trickier for the dog. We're going to remove the food lure from our hand and place it in the other hand. So the hand that he's targeting, we're going to present this just right next to the dog's face, but he no longer has to touch our palm. He just has to get his nose within 1 inch of our hand. Once he does, we want to mark that with yes and then deliver the food from our other hand. Step 4 is him actually touching our hand. So we are going to present it no longer with a food lure right in front of his face, but he will have to touch his nose to our palm. Once he does, again, we'll mark with yes and deliver our food from the other hand. Step 5, we're now increasing that distance again to about a foot. The dog has to crane his neck forward to touch our hand. Again, we can decrease that distance a little with a smaller dog. We just want to make sure it's consistent between each repetition. Step 6 is where the dog has to step forward to touch the palm of our hand. Depending on the size of the dog, that distance may vary, but we want to make sure that it is consistent between repetitions. So adjust it depending on the size of your dog. For a small Chihuahua, it might not be that far. For a Great Dane, we might have to take a couple steps away. But what we need him to do is to step forward to touch the palm of our hand. Step 7 is again hand targeting. We no longer have the food lure in our hand, but he has to move the full body length of the dog. Again, this is going to vary depending on the size, but we just want to make sure we're consistent between repetitions. Once he's comfortable there, this is when we can add our verbal cue. Step 8 is where we add the verbal cue. You'll notice that adding the verbal cue, which in this case is touch, always comes last. We always want the dog to be fluent on the behavior before we add the verbal cue. What we're going to do is ask for a touch. So we're going to say touch, and then pause for 1 to 2 seconds, and then present our hand. What this will look like is touch, and then once he hand targets, we can pay from the other hand. Now let's see it in action. Yes. Here's 1 for 1. Yes. 2 for 2. Yes. 3 for 3. Yes. 4 for 4. Yes. 5 for 5. Get it? Yes, good girl. That was 1 for 1. Yes, 2 for 2. Yes, 3 for 3. Yes, 4 for 4. Yes, 5 for we're gonna put it really close to her face. Yes, good girl. 1 for 1. Yes, good girl. 2 for 2. Yes, good girl. 3 for 3. Yes, good job. 4 for 4. Yes, 5 for 5. Gotta actually touch. Yes, 1 for 1. Yes, 2 for 2. Too bad. 2 for 3. Yes. 3 for 4. Yes. Yes, 1 for 1. Yes, 2 for 2. Yes, 3 for 3. I'm gonna give her as much time to figure it out. She's still working on it. What she's learning right now is what other behaviors. Too bad. So she gave up. She started focusing on something else. So that's a loser trial. So that's 3 out of 4. Yes, 4 out of 5. So that's still. Yes, 1 for 1. Yes, 2 for 2. Too bad. 2 for 3. Yes, 3 for 4. Yes, 4 for 5. So that's a push. Yes, good girl. Too bad. 1 out of 2. Yes, good girl. Yes, good girl. 2 of 2. Yes, good girl. Yes. 3 of 3. Yes, good girl. 4 out of 4. Got your cookie. Yes, good. Touch. Yes. Touch. Good girl. Touch. Yes, good job.